Welcome. Thank you for coming to my webinar, How to Build a Professional Podcast Studio. It's way cheaper than you think. My name is Michael Sharkey. I'm the CEO and founder of Your Podcast Coach. I help business owners, thought leaders, creatives, artists create compelling and professional podcasts, which I like to define as a podcast that you'd actually want to listen to. So I'm going to start. I know today we're going to talk about a studio. We're going to talk about the equipment. I'm going to show you about halfway through. We're going to literally get rid of the presentation and full screen of my studio so that you can see me put together all of this. But I want to start with a story. And this is a true story that happened probably about 2 weeks ago. I was talking with someone who already had a podcast, and they wanted to reached out for a session on ways in which they might grow their podcast. So I was like, sure, let's do a session. I've got a lot of ways that can help you from a content perspective to all sorts of things. So they sent me their podcast, and I'm listening to podcasts all the time. And I go and I finished up a podcast and I go into their podcast. And within a half a second, I knew that this podcast would never work. And the reason why I knew it wouldn't work is because the quality of the sound of the podcast was terrible. And it's like, an analogy would be, trying to run uphill with like weights tied to you and being, in the snow and in the wind and whatever that analogy might look like. But the reality of it is you're never going to gain traction as a successful and professional podcast if the quality of the audio is terrible. So that's the hurdle we're going to get over today. And I want to start by saying it's way cheaper than you think to build a professional studio. And it's way easier than you might think. Like, it's super easy. It's like crazy easy. So it's inexpensive and it's very easy. So that said, there's really no reason why anyone can't have a professional studio. Now, like I said at the very beginning, I work with professionals. So these are people that are like wanting to build a podcast for their business, or they're a CEO who wants to create content to grow their brand or whatever. So you need your podcast to perform from an audio perspective at a certain level. So that is why today we are going to build a professional podcast studio, and it's way cheaper than you think. So with that, I'm going to jump in and start by telling you my goal. Now, my goal as your podcast coach, my goal with everyone that I work with is to give you confidence and ease. And, I will tell you that every single client I help with their studio, we have this conversation one-on-one. But I don't spend a lot of time focused on equipment. And I don't spend a lot of time because, truthfully, and you're going to find out in this webinar, that it's actually very, very easy. But here's what having the right equipment does. As we go through today and you learn this equipment and you learn what microphones and what a USB interface is and all these things, is that once this is done, you never have to think about it again. So imagine if, going back to the story I shared at the beginning, imagine being that person who's unsure of how their equipment sounds. So in the middle of you trying to tell a story about you or your business or your goals or whatever it is for you, that super compelling, amazing story that you have inside of you that's waiting to come out. Imagine throughout all of that, there's a question in the back of your mind. Oh my gosh, I hope my microphone sounds good, or I hope the levels sound right, or I hope it's this or that or that. Well, there's no way you're going to have confidence if you never trust the equipment that you have. It's going to be very challenging for you to have the confidence to do the podcast that you want to do. So, we're going to check that box today. We're going to check the box of building a professional studio. Because ultimately with that confidence comes ease. There are plenty of conversations that I have around, oh my gosh, I can't do it. This is too challenging. It's too difficult. I can't. And what I want to do is I want to turn that into I can. And that is where ease lives. If you believe that you could do it and you have the confidence, that goes into the ease of you doing it. And the other thing is, I just want you to sound great. Everything that I do as your podcast coach is built around helping you sound great. And today we're going to check the box of the audio quality because it matters. We're going to check the box of audio quality so that you can literally focus on what is most important, which is the story that you're going to tell. All right. So with my webinar, a couple of rules and our roles for today. I always like to point these out. So first of all, the rules: be present. Grab your phone and turn it on silent or vibrate. And I had a timer going here, and because I wanted to keep that timer in front of me so that we stay on time. Put your phone on vibrate just so it doesn't bother you. If you got to step out of the room, step out of the room. But while you're here, I want you to be present. Remember, you registered for this, and I am thrilled that you're here, and I honor that you are here. So you don't have to take any notes. You don't have to do anything that involves like directing your attention away. I don't want you to write down any of the equipment or any of that, because when it's all said and done, I'm going to send you an email with everything in this, including a replay of the webinar. So all you have to do is sit back and be present. And I want you to ask questions. Now, I'm going to encourage you. You can ask questions during the webinar, and I'll do my best to answer them in real time. But invariably, this is what's going to happen. 5 minutes after the webinar is over, you're going to have a question. That's why hello@yourpodcastcoach.com is an email that I check all the time. Comes right to my phone. You can send any question there. And specifically to what we're talking about with today's webinar, let's say you are just like, oh my God, this is the answer to all my problems. I'm going to go get this stuff. I'm going to send you a studio checklist. As I said, you jump on Amazon, you buy all this stuff. And then like 2 weeks from now, you're getting it set up and you forget something. Like, oh, what did this one thing do, or whatever it might look like. That's why I want you to hold on to that email address. Because you came to this webinar, because you signed up, because you were like present and you're here, I want you to know that you can ask that question at any time. hello@yourpodcastcoach.com. That is obviously my website, yourpodcastcoach.com. As far as the roles for today, my role, well, I'm the host of the webinar. Hi. Your role is willing participant. You are here because you have questions about building a professional studio. You already know that you want to sound good. So as a willing participant, I honor that role and want to give you as much information as I possibly can. And with this, I'm going to show you how to build a studio. And as we go through, I'm also going to show you how we could work together so that you can tell that story that you so want to tell, that idea that you have that you're so excited about. So why me? What possible reason could I have for knowing this stuff? My background is radio. 25 years in broadcast radio. I was a program director. I worked at some really influential radio stations. Thus behind me, you see the records on the wall. But what I did inside a radio station, the job that I absolutely love the most, the job that I still do to this day, is talent coach. So in radio, what I did is I worked with all the radio personalities. So they would get off the radio every day. We'd sit down in my office. We'd talk about what they discussed, what they talked about. And ultimately what I did is I helped them craft their story. And every day it was different. Every day there was something else happening, be it in sports, news, pop culture, etc. But I loved it. I loved the true coaching process of working with radio personalities, all the way from New York to Vegas to right here in my hometown, which is Tampa Bay, or St. Petersburg, Florida, to be specific. But it's a job that I love so much. Well, in about 2012, I started to shift from, not away from radio at the time, but I started to shift into podcasting. 2012 is a significant year because that was the year that Apple made the podcast app standard on every iPhone. So we see sort of a rise in podcasting happen around 2012. I got into it in 2014. I came into podcasting pretty much full time. Took all that juicy stuff that I learned in radio, working with radio talent, and started applying it to individuals like yourself, artists, celebrity chefs, the very creative types. But I also have worked with and continue to work with accountants, software engineers. One of my clients right now is the largest software consultancy in New York City, Stride Consulting. They have a fantastic podcast called The Rabbit Hole. If you're into software engineering, it's a really good podcast. And I would say that for all the people that I've worked with, I've reviewed, I've done reports on, I've given some critical listening to or had some influence on probably over 10,000 episodes in my career. So, I think there are many people right now where you're at. I shouldn't say there's many. There's a few people right now with where you are in your journey that can help you with your podcast. That's what I bring to the table. We're going to, I think I said this at the beginning. I don't normally spend a lot of time talking about studio stuff because it's a very simple prospect or a very simple aspect of podcasting. Where I spend the majority of my time is working on your story, working on what it is you're trying to say and helping you say it with such eloquence and such mastery that people will really, really, really want to listen to the podcast that you're going to create. So that is who I am. But let's, for a moment, agree upon who we are not. You and I are not broadcast engineers. And if you are a broadcast engineer, I would wonder, why are you on my webinar? But the reason why I bring that up and the reason why I say we are not broadcast engineers is because a broadcast engineer is a very, very, very smart person who I was fortunate enough to work around for those 25 years in radio. And those are the people responsible for building, multi-million dollar studios. Those are the people that I went to and said, hey, how do you build a home studio that sounds really great? I built my first home studio in 2004, 2005, somewhere in that area, for doing voiceover work. Podcasting really wasn't even a thing then. And then as podcasting became more of a thing and the needs grew to have a better home studio, I went to these same broadcast engineers that I had worked with and said, help me build a studio that sounds good. I don't have a ton of money, but help me do this. So everything that you're going to hear today, every lesson that I've learned that I share with you today, doesn't come from me reading Amazon reviews or plugging stuff in and seeing what works or buying 70 different microphones and deciding which is the best. Where I started from, the point that was sort of the beginning for me in building studios was I just went to the people that know how to do it. And what you're going to find today is, as the title suggests in this webinar, is you are going to learn how to build a professional podcast studio that's really, with the equipment I'm going to show you today, under $200. You can go cheaper, but I want to make sure that we maintain that quality level. We maintain the level that keeps you in a place where there's never a distinguishable drop in quality, which brings me to the fact that quality matters. It absolutely matters. I shared the story at the beginning. You go listening. I will refer to Joe Rogan often because Joe Rogan is the most ubiquitous name in podcasting right now. He is and I say that because there was a study, 6 months ago, maybe, where the, survey was who's the podcaster you listen to most, or who's the name you think of when it comes to podcasting. And Joe Rogan was it. So he's, the biggest name in podcasting, if you will. So if you're listening to Joe Rogan and then suddenly you come to a podcast where that quality is not at Joe's level, you're gone. You're absolutely gone. And I say that to you because you want to create a podcast. And I don't want you to lose listeners before you've even started. So the equipment that I'm going to show you today is at that quality level. Sometimes I like to say what I'm doing is I'm leveling the podcast playing field. Joe Rogan's studio is, I don't know, $500,000, $250,000, $1 million. He's got the money, so he's going to spend it. He's probably got engineers who helped him build it. If you've ever watched one of his YouTube shows, people are sitting across from him. He's got a lot of money invested in it. The studios of any NPR style podcast that you listen to, those are multi-million dollar public radio studios. These are all huge studios. And what's so great about technology is you're about to learn how to build a studio that lives in the same playing field as Joe Rogan or NPR or Tim Ferriss or whatever your favorite good sounding podcast is. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not, I'm not saying, oh yeah, you can definitely sound that, but here's sort of the hidden message. You got to do these 70. No, I'm going to show you equipment that when listening to a podcast, it sounds the same because I don't want you to lose listeners. And you will find that a lot of the things that I discuss are from the listener's perspective. So, what I would say to that is when a listener, average person listens, the average podcast listener listens to about 7.5 hours of podcasts every single week. Obviously, many people listen to many more of that. But when a person listens to a podcast, oftentimes, where are they? They're in my pocket. They are listening with ease, some type of earbud or AirPod headphone. That is the most common way people listen to podcasts. It's a non-exclusive activity, so they're listening to podcasts while they're working out, taking a walk, driving, whatever. But the common way in which a person listens is through some type of in-ear style headphone. So the reason why I'm confident that you're going to achieve the same result as a Joe Rogan or a Tim Ferriss is because in that environment, the equipment that I'm going to show you is going to sound just as good. It's going to sound at the levels are the same, and the richness and the smoothness and the quality of your voice is going to sound the same. And as I've said already a couple of times, what I am about to show you is so incredibly easy, and it's really affordable. This is about the investment that you're willing to make. The podcast, the best that I could figure from the one that I was listening to at the beginning of the webinar, the story that I shared with you was they were recording through their computer microphone. So I'm standing in front of a computer and I'm using the microphone that is somewhere in here. I might as well be using tin cans and a string at that point. Like, that's not good quality. You could have the greatest story in the world, but I'm never going to listen to it because I can't get past the fatigue, which is actually a thing. There's a listener fatigue that happens when the quality is poor. It's so easy. It's so affordable. It's a small investment in how great your podcast is going to sound. So what I did is I kind of broke these down into 4 things. I call them the big 4. You get these 4 things, and truthfully, what you're going to learn in a second, you really only need 3 of these, but you get through these big 4, and you're going to have a professional podcast studio that people are going to be like, yeah, that sounds great. The microphone, that's number 1. So the microphone is sort of the crown jewel of your podcast studio. And there's a lot of different microphones that you can buy. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about USB microphones and why I don't recommend them. But I'm going to start with the microphone that I am currently using. And again, you don't have to take notes. You're going to get all of this at the end. So don't feel like you have to write any of this down. This is the Heil PR40. The broadcast engineers that I was talking about probably 12 years ago, they walked into a studio when I was on the air and they're like, hey, we want you to try this microphone. It's from this company, Heil. I don't know. They talked about something. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I plugged in this microphone. Literally, it's not the same microphone, but it's the same kind of microphone. Into the studio that day when I was on the radio, and it was like angels and skies opened up above. It was amazing. This microphone is awesome. This microphone is also $350. This microphone was also like $3,500 a few years ago, but that's technology. The prices have come way down. So I don't, to hold true to what I've been saying, I don't want you to feel like you have to spend that amount of money on a microphone. But because I work with people like this, but if you are like, no, I'm only going to buy the best thing there is and blah, blah, blah. Well, buy this microphone. It's fantastic. You're going to need to buy a couple of other things with it, but it's an amazing microphone for many people. It's the industry standard. But now I want to show you the microphone that I think you should buy. The Shure SM48. In a minute, I'm going to share the whole studio, and we're going to put this together. So I'll show you the microphone in a second. But the Shure SM48 is a great workhorse microphone. It costs like $35. You might find it for 32, you might find it for 38, but basically it's in that $35 price range. It's a great microphone. I would say most of the clients that I've worked with in the last year, that where we start our working relationship where they have nothing, they've all bought this microphone. It's a great microphone for your first home studio. It's also a great microphone for whenever, and we'll talk more about this in a second, but when you eventually are going to be doing interviews in person, so that the person you're interviewing has a microphone and you have a microphone, you can have two of these. I mean, they're $35 each. They're not expensive, but they're durable. They're workhorse microphones, and Shure is a really, really good brand. As a matter of fact, the next microphone that I would throw up there is the Shure SM7B. And the reason why I put this microphone up here, it's a big name microphone. I believe, and I might be mistaken, but I believe it's the microphone Joe Rogan uses. But it's nonetheless, if you Google image the Shure SM7B, it's a microphone that you might have seen in any form of professional recording environment, that sort of thing. But just kind of the same thing with the Heil PR40. If you're just getting into starting a podcast, I don't know that you necessarily need to spend $350 to $400 on a microphone. I'm not telling you not to, but I promised you that I would show you a studio that is of that quality, of that same level, and it's way, way, way cheaper than you think. So that Shure SM48 microphone achieves that. The guts of that microphone are fantastic, and for $35, you can't beat it. So the next piece of equipment is the USB interface. Now, what you're going to see in a second is that this is the thing that your microphone plugs into and then plugs into your computer. But here's why having a USB interface is so important. You can control levels. It's professional audio quality. Remember, that's what I'm promising you. Professional podcast studio, professional audio quality. It gives you that with a richness and a smooth texture to your voice. And again, because you can adjust gain and you can do certain things with it, it's a very handy piece of equipment, which we're going to build a studio in a second, so I'm going to show it to you up close. But what this piece of equipment does, it's the secret weapon, because a lot of people that start a podcast go out and they buy a USB microphone, which I'm going to dive into in a second, but I don't recommend doing a USB microphone. But you will, whenever you get the professional microphone, you're going to need something to plug it into, and that is a USB interface. The third is a good pair of headphones. The headphones that you see me wearing right now are the Sony MDR 7506s. They're about $89. They're going to be on the checklist I send you. If you've got a good set of headphones, use those. You don't have to get these. The only thing I would suggest is the reason why you want a good pair of headphones is when you're recording, you're going to be in an environment similar to exactly what I'm doing right now. You are going to have headphones on and you're going to be talking into a microphone. What the headphones do is there's an initial like, oh my God, I'm hearing myself. Once you get over that hurdle, headphones become like a warm blanket. They become something that becomes very comforting. And what I mean by that is that, when you do a podcast, you potentially are going to record a lot of time or a lot of episodes over a long time. So you want to create an environment where you have that confidence and ease that I talked about, but you want to create an environment that's comfortable, that's really comfortable, and a good set of headphones will do that. So I'm going to pull these out of my pocket again. AirPod earbud style headphones. These right here, great for listening to podcasts, not great for using in a recording environment. Many people have Bose, many people have other style of headphones. So this is sort of the piece of equipment. If you've already got something that are over ear and are good, use what you've got. You just need to be able to plug it into your USB interface. But you're going to want a pair that you can use that allow you that comfortable feeling of listening. And then the final thing you need are cables and a mic stand. And this is sort of like rounding out your equipment. What I'm going to show you in a second, the microphone cables are called XLR. It's a very specific kind of jack, which again, I'm going to show you in a second. And you want a good pair. This is not a go buy the most expensive pair on Amazon. It's sure as heck isn't go buy the cheapest pair, because that can really, you spend all this money on a microphone and then when you buy cheap cables, that's like buying a Ferrari and putting on like, cheap tires. So you don't want to do that. So you want good cables. And then the other thing to think about when it comes to cables is the length. So on the studio checklist you're going to get is a 5-foot cable and a 10-foot cable. They also sell like 20-foot cables. And the reason why I bring that up is sometimes hosts that are working in a space that they want, or they're trying to find their comfort zone, is that they will find that holding onto a microphone and pacing around a room works best. So you just need a long enough cable for that. And then a tripod mic boom or a desktop stand. Reason being is that the exact opposite of the example I just gave you is that for the most part, having your hands free when you're recording a podcast will help you, because then you're recording and you can go to your laptop or you can look at your notes and do things like that. So ultimately with that, and I'm going to show you a desktop in a second, that gives you the ability to record and especially with a tripod mic boom, that allows you to sit down, that allows you to stand up. What you see in front of me right now, the mic boom, which is what it's called, that I use, I would never recommend one of these, ever. So why do you use it? It was a gift. So the only reason why you see the one that I use, the arm that connects either to the side of a desk or that, it was a gift. So it's a gift and I have it attached to an IKEA cart. So, you go with what you have kind of thing. I wouldn't recommend getting one of these if you're just getting, you want some flexibility and you want some versatility more than just one of these that will provide. So with that, we are going to build your podcast studio. So I am going to stop share and we've got the full video. So actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a sip of my tea. All right, let's build your studio. So this is the Shure SM48 microphone. This is the microphone that's like $35. This microphone is a microphone that if you look closely at like an America's Got Talent or an American Idol, you will see a microphone that oftentimes looks like this on stage. This microphone is not the exact same, but the guts of the microphone is very similar. The reason why I recommend this microphone is that you just absolutely cannot beat it for the price. So I recommend this microphone. Sorry, my dog has joined us. Hi, Lil. I recommend this microphone, but let me just jump in really quick and tell you why I don't recommend USB microphones. So this microphone and the ones that I recommend are dynamic microphones. They're professional microphones. They are designed to pick up sound, as you see, as I'm talking close into my microphone. You will notice that as I start to stand back, you don't hear me as well. And then I have to get a little bit closer. This microphone operates the same way. Obviously, if there's loud noises in the background, if my dog starts scratching and you start hearing thump, 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 you will hiccup, it will pick up some of that. But for the most part, these microphones are designed to only get what's in front of them. Oftentimes, USB microphones are called omnidirectional. And what that simply means as an omnidirectional is it's designed to pick up all the noise around you. So that's those snowball microphones that you might see at a Best Buy. I just don't recommend those for podcasting. Remember, I want you to sound as good as the biggest names in podcasting. And I've yet to find a USB microphone that will do that. So your first thing you need is a microphone. The second thing, Lilith. Sorry, it's my dog. Second thing you need is a really good cable. So this is a 5-foot cable. It's Monster. I tend to use Monster cables. I've always liked them. And this is where it gets really, really complicated. Here's your microphone. Here's your cable. And you literally plug it in. That's it. Now, this is a good cable. This is a very thorough cable, okay? So then you take the other. Here's your USB interface. This is the Scarlett Solo, which is, I recommend to you buy the Scarlett 2i2, but I had this one around. So it serves the purpose of an example that I need to give to you today. But that's the front of it. You've got, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the microphone in first. So there's your front, there's your cable. It literally goes in like so. Now you've got this. Now you can adjust the level in which you're talking with this button here. Here's your output for your headphones. There's a couple of other features. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but if you have some different microphones, it will use that. Then it plugs in to the back into a mini USB. And then you have a USB that goes into the side of your computer. And that's it. So with what I have in my hand right now, you can have a professional podcast studio. All of this right here, actually all of this right here is about $150 because this is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. I have this because I want to show you for the example. I recommend the 2i2 mainly because the 2i2 has 2 XLR inputs, so you can have 2 microphones, which is what you need for an interview. The other thing with this particular USB interface is that when you plug this into your computer, it's powered by USB. So you don't need to plug this into a wall. So if you're ever out, you're doing an on-location interview, this is going to be important. You don't need to find a plug, or you don't need to go into a coffee shop and sit somewhere near a plug. It's USB powered. So this gives you portability, and I'm telling you, it sounds great. And I want you to experiment with, talking in different places and trying different things. But when you go to plug this in, Focusrite will, you'll have to download an audio card, or not an audio card, but remember, I'm not a broadcast engineer, a driver, things like that. And then whenever you go to record on software, so Audacity is the name of free software, it's going to show up. It'll say, Scarlett, and you click on that. And what that does is that just sets your computer to record using this equipment and not the microphone that is built into your computer. So literally, this is a professional studio. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not kidding. If you have this equipment, and you'll get the studio checklist at the email. If you go in and you get that equipment, the stuff that I recommend, you will be able to check the box knowing that your quality sounds as good as the biggest names in podcasting. So before I go back to my screen share, I want to show you a couple of other hacks. So I promised you, first of all, that I would show you a desktop mic stand. That's what this is. It's really good, literally, for a desktop. I find that I do this myself, and I recommend this, which is try to record in different places. I'm giving you equipment. I'm recommending equipment that is, it's portable. So try recording in your kitchen, your dining room, your bathroom. I'm in the corner of a room. This is how I have my studio set up. These microphones, as I said a moment ago, are designed to pick up the noise that's right around them. So you don't sound like you're talking into a tin can or hollow or sounds terrible. You'll talk right into it, as I said. But when you talk into it, you can try this recording in a lot of different places. On the studio checklist that I'm going to send you, you are also going to see soundproofing. And I say in there that that is a nice to have. You don't have to have it, but I know some people want that. Soundproofing is what kills all the excess noise to give you a super quiet environment. The microphones that I recommend will achieve most of that for you. However, here's a hack. Grab a blanket. This is a Mexican blanket. This is the blanket that I put on my wall whenever I go to record my podcast. And I put it there because what the cloth does is it absorbs the sound. This is a square room that I'm in, so if it's not up, the sound waves bounce all around, and it can create somewhat of a hollow sound. It's not terrible, but it can create that from time to time. But by putting a blanket on a wall, and you don't have to use a Mexican blanket, you can use any kind of blanket. You can also use like egg crate, like for like a mattress top. It's the same thing. So on the checklist, it's an easy solution because you have the squares, the soundproofing that's there, but a blanket will also work for you. And then the only other thing I want to say about the equipment that I'm sharing with you today, and this is kind of an important piece of this. As you can tell, I'm recommending brand names. I'm recommending Shure microphones. I'm recommending the Focusrite Scarlett series of USB interfaces. Certain cables, things like that. In no way am I compensated for and buy any of these brands. These are brands that I have used and that I trust. And I'm not going to recommend a microphone or a cable or a USB interface. That's why I don't recommend USB microphones. I just don't think they're good, and there's none that I would put my name behind. But I'm like, Shure is not paying me money or anything like that. When you receive your studio checklist, like many people, it's a list of Amazon links. They're affiliate links. So if you buy a $35 microphone, I think I get like 30 cents, but it just makes it easy. And it's but I want to clarify that because I'm really passionate about getting the right equipment. And I just don't want there to be any belief or notion that there's a kickback or anything involved in the like. So with that, I am going to share my screen one more time and go back to this. So let's do a quick review. And then I want to talk to you about, now that we've checked this box, getting into the good, juicy stuff of your podcast. Good quality matters. It matters when you go to create your podcast. It matters so that your podcast sounds as good as the biggest names in podcasting, and it sounds as good as anyone that you might be listening to. Get the right equipment, all the stuff I suggested. I'm going to send you the checklist. Boom, you can move on right after that. And then what this allows you to do, back to the confidence part of you doing a podcast, is it allows you to focus on what you say. How you sound, the technical side is done. You can move on. You've got the confidence. Now it's about what you say. The reason why business owners and thought leaders and artists and many of the people that I work with come to me is, this is what they say to me: having a coach helps. I mean, it's why my business is called Your Podcast Coach. And that's what I want to just take a few minutes and talk to you about, because when you have an idea for a podcast, we've checked the studio box, that's done. But now it's about, how do you tell your story? How do you get in there and understand? How do you keep people's attention? You want people to say, oh my God, I listened to so-and-so's podcast and it sounds fantastic. That's what you want. Well, imagine that happening for you. As a coach, I can help you. I can help you stay on track and do all those types of things from a coaching perspective. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to listen to your audio and I'm going to give you feedback, which is going to help you with that. This is a quote from the #1 talk show host here in Tampa Bay's Afternoon Drive. His name is Drew. And this speaks to the passion that I have for being a coach. Michael is one of those once-in-a-lifetime influences that has the incredible ability to simultaneously nurture and coach while never losing track of what the listener wants to hear. I share that with you. It's a little weird to share that with you, but I'll share it with you because that speaks to what I do, and it speaks to the passion that I have. So how would you like help with your podcast? I want to make this easy for you. I want to make this something that you love doing. Doing a podcast is an absolute fun thing to do. And I want to make sure that that happens for you. So what I put together very quick is an easy offer. It's a very easy offer to take that next leap, that investment in yourself, to tell that story, that investment in crafting an amazing podcast, whatever it is for you. Like I said, what I love so much about this is I've worked with one of the top 20 glass artists in the world, and I've worked with the #1 software consultancy in New York City and everything in between. So the offer that I have for you today is a 2-month professional one-on-one coaching program. It's valued at over $4,300. This is what I do with my CEOs. Basically, we're going to jump in. We're going to do a workshop of your entire podcast. We're going to lay out episodes. I'm going to get you started. We'll do a check-in at the 30-day mark and at the 45-day mark. And we're going to get you published. What I find is it takes about 2 months. To do it right, it takes about 2 months. Some people have done it in a month. Depends on kind of where you are in the thought process. But if you are excited about an idea and you are ready to get started, you're probably 30 to 60 days out. So it's 2 months, a 2-month one-on-one professional coaching program. I'm also going to give you the Your Podcast Coach complete podcast video course. You sign up today, you're going to get the first 2 modules, and then the other ones are going to drip out. And this is a great way for you to reference different things. This is a great way for you to lean back on and see different videos, just to kind of serve as a reminder. A 1-year membership into the Your Podcast Coach member circle. Here's what's so great about my membership site is the members are all just like you. They are creating compelling podcasts right now, and they're there to offer support, but I'm there all the time. It's on Slack. I have a Slack community, and when I'm on Slack, the messaging software, I'm always there. So invariably, I'm listening to audio, giving some comment, giving some feedback, answering questions, answering ideas. So part of my membership is about the Slack community and all the video content that's on there, all the webinars that I've done. And we're going to do a quarterly podcast checkup. So when you commit, we're going to be doing this for a while. We're going to do the 2 months. It's going to be great. We're going to get you started. You're going to have it published. And then about every 3 months, I'm going to check in with you. We'll listen to some audio together, and I'll give you the tips and the pointers to get rolling. So right now, we're at a value of about $8,800, but there's 2 bonuses. Bonus number 1 is the Art of the Interview online course. It's currently being built. You are very good at what you do. You are smart. You are intelligent. You are a professional. You are one of the best in the world at whatever it is you do, but nobody ever came to you and said, hey, by the way, you need to learn how to interview people. So the podcast interview, the audio interview, has some very unique intricacies. So what I'm doing is I'm building a course about creating amazing interviews. And not just from my perspective, I'm interviewing people who have interviewed thousands of people. I've interviewed well over 1,000 people in my radio career, but now you're going to start to hear different sides from different people, and you're going to start seeing some common themes. So one of the problems with podcasting, again, nobody ever said, hey, you've got to learn how to be a business owner and a professional interviewer. I wouldn't expect you to know that. But most podcasts are built around an interview. So I'm going to throw that online course in and grow your podcast fast. This is an amazing course I'm putting together with 2 different marketing experts. One is the host of the Dirty Marketing Podcast. So he's wacky and crazy and has a lot of goofy ideas that work. And the other is a friend of mine, Niall, who is building on how to grow a podcast from a very strategic, analytical, measured perspective, specifically around using Google and LinkedIn to grow. Very, very smart people. It gives you 2 perspectives. So when you look at all this, you've got the coaching, you've got the video course by your side, membership program where you have connection to our Slack community, a quarterly podcast checkup. So it's not like a one and done, like, hey, here's your podcast, good luck. No. And we're going to help you grow your podcast fast and how to interview people. Total value of this is over $10,000. And that's a true value too, today for $997. You can order this today for $997. I'll do it in 2 monthly payments of $525 or 3 payments of $375. But I have to point something out. I got a call at 11 o'clock this morning. It's awesome. That took one of my opportunities, took one of my openings. I can only do so many because it's not fair to my clients if I try to take on too many people at once. So there's actually 2 slots available. yourpodcastcoach.com/special offer. How is it going to work? Pretty simple. As soon as you sign up, we're going to set up an initial setup call. That's going to lead into our big workshop where we lay out your entire podcast. And I mean, we are going to lay it all out. Then you are going to start recording, and you and I are going to have a lot of conversations, mostly over our Slack community. And then we will check in at different times to get you published in that 45 to 60 day mark. 30-day money back guarantee. I mean, on the 29th day and the 23rd hour and the 59th minute, if you are like, this is not for me, I don't want you to be unhappy. So I offer this full refund. Um, no one's ever taken me up on it, ever. And I put where I guess my heart into it, if you will, because I don't want this to ever be something that you feel like, oh, sounded good, but just wasn't right. Coaching is a personal relationship, and I want you to have that. So it's 30-day money back, no questions asked. So again, you get the coaching, you get the podcast course, entry into the Your Podcast Coach member circle, the checkups, the art of the interview course, and the custom podcast launch setup with the course from Niall and Ryan. Today for $997, 2 monthly payments of $525 or 3 of $375, yourpodcastcoach.com/special offer. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time today. Thank you for being here. I want you to hold on to this email, hello@yourpodcastcoach.com, for any questions that you might have. The special offer is there, yourpodcastcoach.com/special offer. If you're listening to this webinar down the road and you click on that link, there's a chance it won't be there. But for the people that are here today that are live, thank you again for being there. There's that. And the final thing I'll say is subscribe to my podcast. It's weekly tips and wisdoms and insights to help you grow your podcast, help you launch and grow your podcast. Just search for Your Podcast Coach on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And with that, I am grateful and thankful. Check your email in the next day for all the resources from this. And thank you for being on my webinar. Have a great day and all the best to you and your podcast. No, wait. Ah, come back. All right. Stop you.